Most of us live with the belief that we think clearly. We imagine ourselves as rational, intelligent beings who make decisions based on logic, experience, and careful thought. We feel confident that we judge situations fairly, evaluate people accurately, and choose wisely. Yet deep inside, we know that reality doesn't match this belief. We procrastinate even when we clearly know what needs to be done. We make decisions quickly and regret them later. We get influenced by a simple phrase, a tone, a number someone mentioned casually. We argue based on feelings, not facts. We trust memories that aren't fully true. We feel certain even when we're completely wrong. And sometimes, we don't even realize we made a mistake, because our mind hides it from us. If you've ever wondered why you overthink small things, why you get stressed while making choices, why you misread someone's intentions, or why you keep repeating the same decision-making mistakes, this is the book that finally explains it all. Welcome to Thinking Fast and Slow, a book that changed psychology, economics, marketing, investing, and everyday human behavior. And welcome to Top Summary, where you learn from the world's most powerful books, transform your thinking, and see your growth unfold. If you're new here, we bring you inspiring lessons that help you grow faster and live better. Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, spent more than 40 years studying how humans think. Along with his collaborator Amos Tversky, he discovered something astonishing. The mind that feels like your best friend is also the mind that misleads you the most. Not because you are flawed, but because your brain evolved for survival, not perfection. Kahneman reveals that your mind is guided by two systems, one fast and automatic, the other slow and deliberate. These two systems shape everything: your reactions, your memories, your judgments, your beliefs, your fears, your confidence, and your mistakes. Most of the time, the fast system controls your life without your permission. The slow system believes it's in charge, but it wakes up only occasionally. Understanding these two systems is like getting a manual for your own brain. Imagine for a moment that your mind has two characters inside it, not fictional characters with backstories, but two modes of thinking. The first is fast, automatic, emotional. It reacts instantly. It jumps to conclusions. It relies on past experiences, patterns, intuition, and shortcuts. This system is always active. It is how you drive on familiar roads, understand simple sentences, detect anger in a voice, or respond before you even finish thinking. The second system is deliberate, logical, slow. It steps in when you solve a math problem, learn something complex, analyze a difficult choice, or try to control an impulse. This system works harder, tires easily, and avoids effort when possible. Kahneman calls them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast thinking. System 2 is slow thinking. And together, they explain why you feel confident even when you're wrong, why you misjudge risks, why your emotions overpower logic, and why your everyday decisions aren't as rational as you imagine. To understand how this affects your daily life, picture this. You walk into a room and instantly sense tension. No one told you anything. No one explained. But you know something is off. That System 1 reading facial expressions, energy, and tiny cues automatically. Now imagine your friend asks, "What exactly made you think something is wrong?" Suddenly you struggle to explain. That's because System 2 wasn't involved. The judgment came from the fast system. This is why so many of our decisions, from what we buy to whom we trust to how we react, come from the quick system, not the logical one. System 1 creates first impressions. System 1 forms instant beliefs. System 1 tells stories quickly, confidently, and emotionally. System 2 is supposed to check these beliefs, but most of the time, it doesn't. It is lazy by design. It steps in only when something feels unusual, when stakes are high, or when effort becomes necessary. System 1 says, he looks trustworthy. System 2 rarely asks, based on what evidence? System 1 says, this option feels safer. System 2 rarely checks if that's actually true. System 1 says, I already know this. System 2 rarely verifies. What makes this dangerous is that System 1 is skilled but also extremely flawed. System 1 loves patterns even when none exist. It hates uncertainty and fills gaps with assumptions. It loves emotional stories, not data. It jumps to conclusions, then System 2 builds explanations to justify those conclusions. The result? Your brain creates illusions. Illusions of understanding, illusions of certainty, illusions of accuracy. These illusions shape your life quietly. For example, you see someone walking confidently, speaking assertively, and smiling warmly. Without thinking, System 1 labels them as competent. You haven't analyzed their qualifications. You haven't checked facts. You simply reacted to appearance, tone, and familiarity. This is why interviews, presentations, and first impressions often mislead us. Or imagine you hear a number. Say, the average price is 30,000. Suddenly, 35,000 feels expensive, even if the true range is 10,000 to 20,000. This is because the first number anchors your mind. System 1 holds on to it, and System 2 rarely questions it. Or think about this. People feel more fear flying in a plane after hearing about a crash, even though statistically, nothing has changed. System 1 responds to emotional images, not probability. System 1 cares about stories. System 2 cares about logic, but gets activated only when forced. And this is why Kahneman's work is so revolutionary. He reveals that the most dangerous mistakes are not the ones we notice, but the invisible ones. Before we dive deeper into anchoring, framing, biases, overconfidence, risk, loss aversion, and the psychology of choice, Kahneman introduces another crucial concept: cognitive ease. Cognitive ease explains why your mind loves comfort. Your brain feels safe when things are simple, familiar, repeated, and smooth. It feels tense when things are complex, unfamiliar, or effortful. If something is easy to read, you believe it more. If something is repeated often, you trust it more. If a message feels comfortable, your mind accepts it without checking. This is why brands use clean logos, simple slogans, repetitive messaging, and familiar colors. They are feeding your System 1, which responds faster than your rational mind does. Consider this small micro example. If you read the sentence, Vitamin Z cures headaches, written in a clean font, your mind feels relaxed and more trusting. If the same sentence appears in a difficult, blurry, or oddly shaped font, your mind becomes cautious. Not because the sentence changed, but because the cognitive ease changed. Your belief is influenced by how smooth the processing feels. This affects learning too. If you rewrite your notes neatly, your retention improves. If your workspace is cluttered, your mind tires faster. If your slides are simple, your audience understands better. Cognitive ease also affects money decisions. A stock with a name that is easy to pronounce performs better in the short term than one with a complicated name, simply because investors feel familiar with it. This might sound absurd, but Kahneman proves it consistently with research. Your brain is not looking for truth. Your brain is looking for ease. And when something feels easy, your system once says, "This makes sense," even if it doesn't. For students, this insight is powerful. If a topic feels difficult, your fast system says, "I'm not good at this." But difficulty is often a sign that system 2 is working, which is exactly what learning requires. For professionals, cognitive ease explains why you prefer familiar strategies and resist new methods. It explains why meetings rely on what feels right instead of what is true. For entrepreneurs, cognitive ease helps you design better products and messaging. When customers understand something instantly, they trust it. For daily life, this insight helps you pause before believing something just because it feels right. Kahneman emphasizes that the struggle between ease and effort, speed and accuracy, intuition and logic, creates predictable errors. Your mind falls into traps not because you are careless but because the brain evolved to save energy. Your brain values survival over truth, speed over accuracy, simplicity over depth. And the first step toward better decision making is awareness. Awareness of how your mind reacts. Awareness of when intuition takes over. Awareness of when confidence becomes an illusion. Awareness of when effort is needed. This is just the beginning of the journey through thinking, fast and slow. In the next part, we will explore anchoring, framing, the law of small numbers, the halo effect, and other powerful ideas that reveal how your mind forms beliefs, and how those beliefs shape your life without your permission. Before we continue, take a moment to notice something. Your mind is not one voice. It is two systems, sometimes cooperating, often conflicting. Understanding these systems is the foundation of every choice you make. This is where part 1 ends. Part 2 will go deeper into the mechanics of judgment and choice, and reveal how you can protect yourself from the hidden cognitive traps we all fall into. Your mind is constantly painting a picture of the world, quickly, confidently, and often inaccurately. Kahneman explains that one of the strongest forces shaping your judgments is something called anchoring. Anchoring happens when your brain gets influenced by the first number, idea, or impression it encounters, even if that information is completely random. If someone asks, "Is the population of Turkey more or less than 50 million?" and then asks you to guess the exact number, your estimate will be pulled toward the number 50. Even if you know nothing about Turkey, even if the number was completely arbitrary. What we hear first becomes a silent reference point. The anchor. This is why discounts work so well in marketing. When a price tag says 999 rupees, now only 499 rupees, your mind compares the new price to the anchor, 999, and feels you're getting something valuable. But if the product simply said 499 rupees from the beginning, you might not even consider it. Anchoring can influence almost anything: salary negotiations, real estate prices, exam scores, restaurant menus, and even how you judge yourself. For example, if your friend casually mentions, "I ran 10 kilometers today," you may unconsciously compare your own effort with that number. Suddenly, your small workout feels insignificant. The anchor wasn't meant to judge you, but your mind uses it anyway. Anchoring also makes first impressions stronger than they should be. The first statement you hear about a person or situation becomes the reference point. If someone is introduced as very intelligent, every action they take afterward appears through that anchor. If the introduction is negative, your mind interprets everything darkly. This is why Kahneman says, "You see the world through anchors you never chose." Understanding this helps you break free. If you're a student, don't let someone's casual scores or achievements become the anchor that defines your own growth. If you're a professional, Notice the anchors in negotiations. The first offer is almost never final. If you're an entrepreneur, remember that the first impression you give becomes the anchor customers use. And in everyday life, pause when you feel influenced by a number or a claim. Ask yourself, is this real or just an anchor? Anchors shape decisions. But something even more powerful shapes how you perceive reality itself. Something Kahneman calls the halo effect. The halo effect is when one positive trait makes us believe all other traits must also be positive. For example, if someone speaks confidently, we automatically assume they are competent. If someone is physically attractive, we unconsciously think they are kind, trustworthy, or talented, even without evidence. If a company succeeds once, we assume every decision they make is genius. The halo effect creates a smooth, comfortable story. Your mind loves these easy stories, but they are rarely accurate. You're not judging the person, you're judging the halo around them. This effect influences teachers grading students, managers evaluating employees, and even how you choose friends or partners. You might trust someone simply because they give you the right vibe, but that vibe might be created by one small detail. Their smile, their tone, their confidence, or even their posture. The halo effect also makes it harder to notice flaws. For example, if an employee makes a great presentation once, the manager may ignore their mistakes for months. If a student performs well in one subject, teachers assume they are hardworking in all subjects. Kahneman reminds us, we often judge entire people based on tiny fragments. But just as halos distort our perceptions, there is another force that distorts our confidence. Something he calls the illusion of understanding and the illusion of validity. These illusions appear when your mind constructs stories that give you a sense of clarity even when the information is incomplete. Your brain hates uncertainty so much that it fills the gaps immediately, not always with truth, but with confidence. That's why you feel like you knew something would happen after it already happened. That's why predictions in hindsight feel obvious. And that's why experts, investors, and leaders often speak with powerful confidence even when their predictions are wrong. Your mind creates a story that feels clean, logical, and consistent, even if the real world is messy and unpredictable. For instance, imagine reading about a successful entrepreneur. You hear about their discipline, their passion, their early struggles, and their strategies. Suddenly, the entire journey seems straightforward, as if anyone who followed those steps would succeed. You're forgetting the unknown factors, luck, timing, environment, and thousands of unpredictable variables. The brain tells you a smooth story, not a true one. This illusion affects students who think, I understood this topic while reading, but forget everything during exams. It affects professionals who feel confident in taking shortcuts because everything seems fine. It affects entrepreneurs who overestimate how fast their business will grow. Confidence is necessary, but when confidence comes without awareness, it's dangerous. Now, while our minds love stories, they fear effort. And this leads to one of the most important concepts in the book, the law of least effort. Now, while our minds love stories, they fear effort. And this leads to one of the most important concepts in the book, the law of least effort. Your brain prefers shortcuts because thinking deeply is tiring. That is why System 1 does most of the work. Your brain stores energy by avoiding slow thinking whenever possible. It uses habits, intuition, and emotional responses to navigate the world quickly. This is helpful in daily life. You don't want to analyze every small thing, but it also makes you vulnerable to biases. For example, when faced with a hard question, Your brain often substitutes it with an easier one without telling you. Instead of asking, "Is this project worth my time?" your brain asks, "Do I like this idea?" Instead of, "Is this person reliable?" it asks, "Do I feel comfortable around them?" Instead of, "Is this opportunity statistically sound?" it asks, "Does it excite me?" System 1 gives fast answers. System 2 takes focus and energy. Kahneman says, "We think we're solving hard problems, but most of the time we answer easy ones." This substitution shapes many decisions: what we buy, whom we date, the career choices we make, even the way we judge people on the street. Your brain tries to do the minimum work necessary, not because you are lazy, but because the brain is biologically designed to conserve energy. Another striking idea in the book is priming. Priming is when subtle cues influence your behavior, emotions, and thoughts without your awareness. If you read words related to old age, like slow, retired, gray, you may start walking slower. If you hear the word rude several times, your mind becomes more defensive and irritated. If a teacher is reminded of stereotypes before grading, their evaluation changes. Priming affects your mood, your speed, your patience, your confidence, even your memory. This is why environments matter. A messy desk affects your thinking speed. A noisy room affects your concentration. A motivational quote can change your emotional tone. The people around you prime your behavior without ever saying anything. Your mind is constantly responding to invisible triggers. This explains why students perform differently in different classrooms, why employees behave differently with different managers, why your day feels different based on the first person you speak to, why your productivity changes depending on your workspace atmosphere. Your brain is always being shaped by what you see, hear, feel, and experience, even if you're unaware. Now, before we continue further into risk, loss, errors, and human irrationality, this is a good moment to pause for a quick reminder. If you enjoy our top summaries and storytelling, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this with someone who might need it today. We've got some bonus action items for you at the end, so keep listening. Now, let's get back to the summary. Another powerful idea Kahneman discusses is substitution, which we touched on earlier. But let's explore it deeper. Substitution is when your brain avoids difficult analysis by instantly replacing the question with something simpler. If someone asks, "How satisfied are you with your life?" your brain quickly substitutes it with, "What is my current mood?" If you're in a good mood, your entire life suddenly feels meaningful. If you've had a bad day, your entire life feels uncertain. This shows how easily the mind gets misled by emotions. Students misunderstand their ability based on their current mood. Professionals judge their productivity based on the energy of one day. Partners misjudge relationships based on temporary feelings. Citizens make political judgments based on how they felt that morning. Your slow-thinking mind should step in to correct this, but it rarely does. System 1 acts fast. System 2 follows late or sometimes not at all. Another major concept in the book is the availability heuristic. Your brain judges the importance or likelihood of something based on how easily you can recall an example. If you recently heard about a plane crash, flying suddenly feels dangerous. If you heard of one person becoming rich through trading, the stock market suddenly feels rewarding. If you hear about crime on the news, the world suddenly feels unsafe. Your mind doesn't analyze reality. It analyzes what is available in memory. This affects financial decisions, emotional decisions, social judgments, and personal fears. It explains why people fear unlikely events and ignore common ones. It explains why rare tragedies seem bigger than major everyday risks. It explains why the media shapes public perceptions so strongly. Because stories repeat and become easy to recall. Students overestimate difficult topics because the stress they feel is available to their memory. Professionals overestimate failures because they replay those memories. Entrepreneurs overestimate risks when they read news of startups failing and overestimate success when they hear stories of unicorns. Kahneman says, "Nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you are thinking about it." This is the trap of availability. Your mind exaggerates whatever is in front of you. Let's explore one more critical idea in this part. Vacuity. What you see is all there is. Your brain forms conclusions from the limited information available. It does not wait for all facts. It does not question missing details. It confidently creates complete stories based on incomplete data. If you hear that someone is very talented, your mind fills in the rest: hardworking, reliable, disciplined, none of which you know for sure. If you hear one negative story about a brand, your mind creates a full negative impression. If you see one strong quality in someone, you treat it as their entire identity. Your brain believes the story it can build now, not the story that is true. Vacuity explains why people jump to conclusions, why rumors spread fast, why gossip feels real, why our judgments are biased, and why confidence often replaces accuracy. Students think they're prepared because the parts they studied make them feel prepared, ignoring the parts they skipped. Professionals think they understand a problem after one meeting, ignoring hidden complexities. Entrepreneurs think feedback from a few customers reflects the whole market, ignoring unseen impressions. The mind simplifies the world to avoid complexity, and that simplification gives confidence, not clarity. Human beings like to believe we make decisions logically. But when money, losses, risks, and uncertainty enter the picture, something entirely different takes control of the mind. Kahneman discovered one of the most important truths about human behavior: that we fear loss more than we value gain. This phenomenon is called loss aversion. Imagine this. Someone offers you a 50% chance to win 1000 rupees and a 50% chance to lose 1000 rupees. Even though the math is perfectly balanced, most people reject the offer. The pain of losing feels almost twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining. This disproportionate emotional reaction is wired deep inside us. This is why people hold on to losing stocks too long, avoid difficult conversations, and cling to failing projects. It is why students hesitate to choose new opportunities, why professionals fear career switches, and why entrepreneurs avoid experiments even when the logic says they should try. Your brain is not protecting your growth. It is protecting you from the feeling of loss. And that feeling often stops progress. Loss aversion affects relationships too. People remember one hurtful comment more than 10 positive ones. Employees react strongly to small criticisms and forget big compliments. Partners focus on one bad day instead of months of good experiences. The pain stands out. Kahneman explains that our mental world is built on avoiding loss: financial, emotional, reputational. But when you understand this bias, you can rise above it. When you fear a decision, ask yourself, am I avoiding this because it's truly risky, or because I'm afraid of loss? Often, the answer comes from System 1, fear, not from System 2, clarity. Loss aversion leads directly into Kahneman's most famous contribution, prospect theory, the idea that people do not think in terms of absolute wealth or outcome, but in terms of gains and losses relative to a reference point. For example, earning 80,000 rupee feels different depending on the comparison. If you expected 60,000 rupees, you feel rich. If you expected 1 lakh rupees, you feel disappointed, even though the money is the same. You judge life not by what you have, but by what you expected to have. Prospect theory explains why people take huge risks when trying to avoid losses and become overly cautious when protecting gains. It explains gambling, trading behavior, business decisions, and emotional reactions in everyday life. A student who expected 95% and scored 92% feels terrible. A student who expected 80% and scored 92% feels amazing. The score is the same, but the reference point changes everything. Professionals feel frustrated when a promotion gets delayed even if the salary is good. Entrepreneurs feel anxious when a slight drop happens after months of growth. People feel angry when a discount is removed even if the final price is still reasonable. Our happiness is shaped not by reality but by our expectations. Kahneman says, reality matters, but expectations shape experience. Once you realize this, you learn to manage expectations and reduce emotional turbulence. Now, another bias that shapes our lives dramatically is overconfidence. Kahneman reveals that human beings consistently overestimate what they know, how much control they have, and how well they can predict the future. We trust our intuition too much, memories too much, and interpretations too much. Students feel confident before exams because the topics feel familiar, but they forget that familiarity is not mastery. Professionals assume they can finish tasks faster than they actually can, leading to bad planning, a phenomenon called the planning fallacy. Investors believe they are better than the market, even though most fail. Leaders make strong forecasts without recognizing hidden uncertainties. Overconfidence is a seductive illusion. It makes us feel powerful, but it blinds us to reality. Kahneman says something remarkable. Confidence is not a measure of accuracy. It is a feeling. Your confidence depends more on how your story feels inside your mind than on how true the story actually is. This is why confident people impress us, even when they know very little. System 1 responds to tone, body language, and certainty, not to truth. To protect yourself, Kahneman recommends pausing whenever you feel too sure. Ask yourself, do I know this, or does it just feel familiar? Am I confident because of evidence, or because of emotion? Am I estimating based on facts or assumptions? This simple pause activates System 2 and reduces costly mistakes. Kahneman then introduces another crucial concept, framing, the idea that the way information is presented changes how you perceive it, even if the actual facts are identical. For example, people prefer a treatment with a 90% survival rate over one with a 10% mortality rate, even though both mean the same thing. People prefer meat labeled 95% fat-free over 5% fat. People donate more when they hear, save 10 out of 100 children, compared to 10% survival rate. Your decisions depend on the frame, the mental lens. This is true in relationships, career, health, finances, and social interactions. Framing even affects self-talk. If you tell yourself, I failed, you frame the story in defeat. If you tell yourself, I learned what didn't work, you frame it in progress. The event is the same, but the emotional impact is different. Students often say, this chapter is hard, instead of, this chapter needs more time. Professionals say, I'm stuck, instead of, I'm exploring new options. Entrepreneurs say, this business is risky, instead of, this business requires strategy. Framing transforms your mindset. Kahneman's insight is clear. The frame creates the meaning, not the content. As the book progresses, Kahneman explores deeper ideas about happiness, memory, and experience. One of the most profound is this: the experiencing self and the remembering self are not the same. The experiencing self lives moment to moment. It feels pleasure, pain, stress, comfort, joy, and fear. It reacts instantly to the present. But the remembering self tells the story later, and the story often distorts the truth. For example, imagine you were on a long vacation. You had many peaceful days and one terrible moment. Years later, when someone asks about the trip, your remembering self focuses on the terrible moment. The story becomes negative, even though most of the experience was positive. Or imagine the opposite: a difficult journey that ended beautifully. The remembering self considers it a wonderful experience, even if most moments were stressful. Your happiness depends far more on how you remember events than on how you experience them. This explains why people stay in jobs they dislike or relationships that hurt, because the remembering self highlights only key moments, not the whole reality. Kahneman discovered a rule that shapes memory: the peak and rule. Your mind remembers two things most: the peak of the experience, the best or worst moment, and the ending. Everything else fades. That is why a good ending makes a movie unforgettable. Why a warm last interaction makes relationships feel stronger. Why a single heartful moment erases months of good memories. Why the final minutes of an event define how we feel about it. Understanding this gives you a powerful advantage. You can consciously create better endings. Students can end study sessions on a positive note to improve recall. Professionals can end meetings with clarity to shape perception. Entrepreneurs can end customer experience with delight to build loyalty. The experiencing self wants comfort. The remembering self wants meaning. And sometimes, these two selves fight. Your job is to balance them, to live moments deeply and build stories wisely. As the book approaches its end, Kahneman leaves the reader with a subtle but powerful message. Humans are not perfectly rational, and that's okay. But we can become aware. And awareness changes everything. You cannot remove biases, but you can recognize them. You cannot avoid mistakes, but you can reduce them. You cannot control intuition, but you can learn when to question it. Slow thinking gives you the ability to pause, the space to choose better. For students, this means noticing when intuition misleads you. Recognizing when "I can't do this" is just system one's quick reaction. Choosing slow thinking helps you learn deeply, manage time better, and reduce stress. For professionals, awareness helps you communicate clearly, evaluate options logically, avoid overconfidence, and make thoughtful decisions. It helps you navigate office politics, negotiations, leadership dynamics, and high-pressure environments. For entrepreneurs, understanding mental biases improves product design, marketing strategy, pricing decisions, customer behavior analysis, and risk management. It helps you build systems, not just rely on gut feelings. For all listeners, becoming aware of your mind is one of the most powerful skills in life. And now, as we reach the end of this summary, let's create a smooth emotional landing: the outro and action steps. The human mind is extraordinary. It can imagine, create, solve, love, explore, and grow. But it can also distort, fear, rush, assume, and misjudge. The journey of life gets easier when you understand your own mind. When you recognize the difference between fast impulses and slow clarity. When you learn to pause before reacting, to reflect before deciding, and to take responsibility for your inner world. You don't need to eliminate biases. You just need to see them. Once seen, they lose power. Here are a few bonus actions inspired by the book. Pause before important decisions. Give system time to think. Write down your expectations. It helps control emotional reactions. Challenge your first impressions. They are often halos or anchors. Separate emotion from evaluation. Notice when fear of loss holds you back. Design your environment. Reduce triggers that prime negative behavior. Choose clarity over comfort. Many mistakes come from cognitive ease. And most importantly, remember, you are not your first reaction. You are the awareness behind it. That's all for today. We'll continue bringing you top book summaries that inspire change and reflection. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep transforming. Transform your thoughts. Transform your life.